Here's something Hulu does that drives me absolutely insane. You're already paying for Hulu, and I'd bet good money that the last thing you watched on it was something the homepage pushed at you. A new original, a trending series, something the algorithm decided you probably wanted based on something you half-watched 3 months ago. Meanwhile, Hulu's sci-fi catalog is quietly extraordinary. Films sitting there, unwatched, untrended, unpushed. From a Duncan Jones masterpiece with one of the finest solo performances of the last 20 years, to a Gareth Edwards epic that looks like it cost twice what it did. And 2 of the films on this list came out this year. Both of them were reviewed well, both landed on Hulu with almost no fanfare, and both are already being quietly forgotten by the algorithm. 15 sci-fi films, all on Hulu right now, ranked. Let's go! Number 15. 65. Adam Driver crash lands on a prehistoric Earth 65 million years ago. That's the entire premise, and it is executed with a lean, muscular efficiency that most survival thrillers would kill for.
We are the only survivors. I don't know where we are, but there's something out there.
Driver plays Mills, a pilot transporting a passenger in deep space who gets knocked off course by an asteroid field and goes down on an uncharted planet. There is one other survivor, a young girl named Koa, played by Ariana Greenblatt, who speaks a different language and has no idea where she is. And the planet has dinosaurs. And a second asteroid is coming. Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who wrote A Quiet Place, wrote and directed this. And what they built is a 93-minute film that doesn't waste a single minute. 65 was released to mixed reviews from critics who wanted something more ambitious and dismissed it for not being what it never claimed to be. What it is? A tight, well-made survival picture with a quietly excellent lead performance is more than enough for a Saturday night. Turn your brain off a little. Let Driver run from things. You'll have a good time. Number 14. Mike and Nick and Alice. Ben David Grabinski wrote and directed this. It premiered at SXSW in March 2026, went straight to Hulu, and has been almost completely... Vince Vaughn plays Nick, a mob enforcer whose wife Alice is having an affair with his best friend and fellow criminal, Quick Draw Mike. One night, a version of Nick arrives from the future. 6 months from now, Mike is going to be killed, wrongly framed as an informant. Future Nick has come back to stop it, using a time machine built by a slightly unhinged inventor. So now there are 2 Nicks. Both of them know about Alice and Mike, and they all have to survive the most dangerous night of their lives together. Here's what makes this film really work. It uses time travel not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a comedic and emotional pressure cooker. Future Nick has had 6 months to make peace with his wife's betrayal. Present Nick has had about 45 minutes. Vaughn plays both versions, the wounded and the processed, with a comedic precision that is some of his sharpest work in years. The action sequences are inventive and gleefully violent. Dolph Lundgren appears as a cannibalistic assassin named the Baron and is, inexplicably, the scariest thing in the film. Loud, stylish, and enormous fun. Exactly the kind of Hulu original that should have had 10 times the audience it got. Number 13. Prospect.
I'm here to harvest. I have the location of a massive deposit of Orlac. The Queen's Lair. By my estimation, it's the largest anyone's ever seen.
Sophie Thatcher plays C, a teenager who has spent her whole life following her father from one dangerous extraction job to another on alien moons nobody glamorous would ever visit. They land on a toxic moon to harvest valuable organic gems. Her father makes a deal with a stranger. The deal goes wrong, and now C is stranded on a poisonous planet with the man who just killed her father, played by Pedro Pascal. And she needs him to survive. And he needs her to find the gems. Prospect is the best Pedro Pascal film most people have never seen. Made for under $4 million. Shot in the forests of Washington state in suits that look patched, fogged, and held together with determination. Slash Film called it the best indie science fiction film since Moon. The world building, done entirely through casual dialogue and what things look like, is more convincing than most films with 10 times the budget. A film for people who want their sci-fi grimy, patient, and real. Number 12. Color Out of Space. H.P. Lovecraft wrote the source story in 1927. Richard Stanley adapted it in 2019. Nicolas Cage agreed to be in it.
Like a pink light, or actually, I don't even know what color it was. It wasn't like any color I'd ever seen before.
The Gardners, Nathan, his wife, and their 3 children, have moved from the city to a rural Massachusetts farm. One night, a meteorite lands in their yard. It leaves behind a color. Not a color that exists in any visible spectrum. A color that begins to affect the soil, the water, the animals, and then the family. Nicolas Cage plays the father. And if you know anything about Cage in genre films from this era, you know exactly what kind of escalating, unhinged performance you're getting. And it is glorious. Richard Stanley shot this with the specific visual commitment of a director who has spent 30 years trying to get back to feature filmmaking and intends to make every frame count. The color itself, an electric magenta that bleeds into every corner of every shot as the film progresses, is one of the most effective uses of production design to create psychological unease in recent horror cinema. This is Lovecraftian horror, the specific kind that isn't about monsters, but about the dissolution of the categories your mind uses to make the world legible. A film that deserves to be far more seen than it is. Number 11. The Creator. Gareth Edwards, the director of Rogue One, spent years developing this, and what he produced is one of the most visually distinctive science fiction films in years.
Are you going to heaven?
No.
Why not?
You gotta be a good person to go to heaven.
In a future war between America and AI, an ex-Special Forces soldier named Joshua is sent to hunt down and destroy the ultimate AI weapon. That weapon is a small child called Alfie. The visual approach Edwards developed, shooting on consumer-grade cameras in real locations across Asia, then adding effects, creates something that larger-budget productions rarely achieve. The feeling that this world is actually being filmed rather than constructed. The scale is enormous. The texture feels real. The Creator is more than a stunning visual exercise. It is genuinely, unsentimentally sad. Joshua's relationship with Alfie, the AI child, is built slowly and with patience, and what it builds toward is not the ending you think you're watching build toward. Edwards earns his final act completely. Underseen theatrically, under-discussed everywhere. One of the most visually extraordinary original sci-fi films in years. Number 10. Love and Monsters. Right, gear change. Because after prehistoric terror, you deserve something that's going to make you smile.
Where have you been, Joel?
Amy, I love you. I'm gonna come find you.
The day of the monster uprising?
Dylan O'Brien plays Joel, a young man living in an underground bunker 7 years after a chemical attack turned all cold-blooded creatures on Earth into enormous, aggressive monsters. Joel is separated from his girlfriend Amy, who he's been communicating with on radio from a bunker 85 miles away. He decides to walk to her. Michael Matthews directed this, and what he built is one of the most purely delightful sci-fi adventures in recent memory. Funny, heartfelt, imaginatively designed with monster sequences that blend practical and CGI effects with a craft that belies the film's modest budget. Here's what makes Love and Monsters more than a creature feature. It's genuinely a coming-of-age film, wrapped inside a monster movie. Joel's journey across the surface isn't just about getting to Amy. It's about a person discovering who he is when the structure of a bunker isn't keeping him safe and small. Every monster encounter teaches him something. Every person he meets along the way shapes something. Michael Rooker appears roughly halfway through and promptly steals the film. Charming, warm, funny, and with enough genuine tension to keep you honest. One of the most underappreciated films of 2020. Number 9. No One Will Save You. I need to tell you something about this film before anything else. There is almost no dialogue in it. Almost none. And it is one of the most purely tense pieces of science fiction filmmaking in years. Bryn lives alone in a house at the edge of a small town, isolated from everyone around her for reasons the film reveals slowly. And then, one night, something gets into her house. Something not human. Brian Duffield wrote and directed this, and the decision to strip away dialogue almost entirely forces the film to communicate everything. Fear, intelligence, desperation, even humor, through performance and sound design alone. Caitlin Dever carries the entire film essentially solo, and what she does with almost nothing but physical performance is extraordinary. What elevates No One Will Save You above a simple home invasion premise is what the alien encounter is actually about. The film is, underneath the genre mechanics, a story about isolation, guilt, and the specific loneliness of being someone your community has already decided not to forgive. The ending is divisive. The final 10 minutes land like almost nothing else in recent science fiction. I watched this alone at night. I sat in the dark for a long time afterwards. Not because it was sad or terrifying, because it was the most purely committed piece of genre filmmaking I had watched in years. The best film on this list. And if you haven't seen it, stop. Whatever you were going to do tonight, stop. Number 8. The Assessment. In the near future, after a climate catastrophe has forced humanity behind protective domes, parenthood is no longer a choice. It's an exam.
Over the next 7 days, you'll undergo close observation and formal testing to ascertain suitability for parenting. I want to get to know the real you.
Is that a good idea?
Yes.
I was joking.
A married couple, both scientists, both desperate to have a child, undergo a grueling 7-day evaluation conducted by a state assessor who moves into their home to observe every part of their lives. Elizabeth Olsen and Himesh Patel play the couple. Alicia Vikander plays Virginia, the assessor. And Vikander does something genuinely unnerving here, sliding between professional detachment and an unsettling impersonation of a child with a precision that destabilizes every scene she's in. Fleur Fortuné directs her feature debut, and the world building is the film's real strength. Domes, controlled lifespans, and a society that has traded almost everything for survival. The Assessment arrived in 2025 with relatively little noise. It is one of the sharpest, most quietly disturbing pieces of near-future science fiction in years. And the question it leaves you with is not about the couple on screen. Psychological, stylish, and with a final act that leaves you exactly as unsettled as a film called The Assessment probably should. Number 7. Boss Level. If Groundhog Day and a John Wick movie had a baby, and that baby was directed by the guy who made Crank, you'd get Boss Level.
What if the ability to rewrite history was real? What if I can erase our mistakes? This gives me the power of God.
Frank Grillo wakes up, gets attacked by an assassin, dies, then wakes up again. Same morning, gets attacked, dies again, then again, and again. Boss Level is a time loop action film that knows exactly what it is and commits to it with complete gleeful conviction. What separates it from the dozen other Groundhog Day riffs that arrived in its wake is the escalation. Every loop, Grillo's character gets slightly better, slightly faster, slightly more creative about surviving the increasingly bizarre parade of assassins sent to kill him each morning. The film treats this like a video game, and that is entirely intentional. Frank Grillo is one of the most underrated action performers working, and this is his best vehicle. Deadpan, physically committed, carrying the film's considerable comedy entirely through expression and delivery. Mel Gibson shows up as the villain. Naomi Watts shows up as the scientist at the center of it. Michelle Yeoh shows up and does Michelle Yeoh things. It's ridiculous. It knows it's ridiculous. It has a tremendous amount of fun being ridiculous. This went straight to streaming with almost zero marketing, and it deserved a theatrical run. Genuinely one of the most purely fun action sci-fi films of the 2020s. Number 6. Ghostbusters Afterlife. This film is most likely to already be on your radar, because even if you've heard of it, the odds are good you haven't actually watched it. And that is a mistake.
What is that?
Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the original, made this as a direct sequel to Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2. set decades later, following a single mother and her 2 children who inherit a failing farm in rural Oklahoma from their estranged grandfather. The grandfather is Egon Spengler, and underneath the farm, something has been building for a very long time. Afterlife is not the film the 2016 reboot tried to be. It isn't trying to reinvent the franchise or make a statement. It's a film that loves the original with complete sincerity and builds something genuinely emotional on top of that foundation. McKenna Grace plays Phoebe, Egon's granddaughter, and she is the absolute heart of this film. A 12-year-old who inherited her grandfather's mind and his isolation and his obsession, piecing together what he spent his life trying to stop. Here's what makes Ghostbusters Afterlife more than nostalgia. The final act earns something that I won't describe, that the film has been building to its entire runtime, that is genuinely moving in a way I did not expect from a Ghostbusters film. A warm, well-made, properly loving piece of franchise filmmaking. Number 5. Good luck, have fun, don't die. Gore Verbinski. The director of The Ring, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Rango, one of the most visually inventive mainstream directors of his generation, disappeared from Hollywood for nearly a decade. And this is what he came back with.
Hey! This isn't a robbery! I am from the future! And all of this goes horribly wrong.
Sam Rockwell plays a man who arrives at a Norm's diner in Los Angeles, claiming to be from the future. This is his 117th attempt. Each time, a different combination of disgruntled diner patrons must be assembled to prevent the creation of a rogue artificial superintelligence that destroys humanity. The combination has to be exact, and he has one night to find it. This is what happens when Verbinski is given a genuinely original script and complete creative control. A film that simultaneously functions as Terminator parody, Black Mirror satire, and ensemble character comedy, with a rage at AI and tech addiction culture so pointed and so unapologetic that the film's detractors called it on the nose, which was always the point. Rockwell is at his absolute best. Haley Lou Richardson, Michael Pena, Zazie Beetz, and Juno Temple fill out the diner ensemble, each of them given a storyline, and each one landing. 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics called it a gleeful, high-concept comedy with a serious message at its core. Audiences found this one later on Hulu. You should too. Number 4. AI Artificial Intelligence. Stanley Kubrick spent 15 years developing this film. He handed it to Steven Spielberg 2 years before he died, believing Spielberg was better equipped to make it than he was. David is a robot child, the first of his kind built with the ability to love. He is adopted by a grieving couple as a replacement for their own son, who lies in suspended animation, frozen by an illness with no cure yet found. Then the real son recovers, and David, who can love unconditionally but cannot stop loving once he's started, is abandoned in the woods to fend for himself in a world that views robots as disposable. Haley Joel Osment plays David, 12 years old at the time, giving what many critics consider one of the finest child performances ever filmed. Jude Law plays Gigolo Joe, a robot built for pleasure who becomes David's only real companion and protector on his journey to find the blue fairy from the story of Pinocchio, convinced that becoming a real boy is the only way his mother will ever love him back. The film fuses Kubrick's clinical bleakness with Spielberg's emotional warmth, and the friction between those two sensibilities is exactly what makes it so unsettling. The ending, controversial since release, beloved by some critics, dismissed by others as too sentimental, is, on rewatch, one of the bleakest things Spielberg has ever put to film, disguised as a moment of comfort. Number 3, Palm Springs. Another time loop. Stay with me, because this one does something almost nothing else in the genre has managed.
Niles?
Don't come in here!
What the...
It's gonna be a beautiful wedding.
Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti are stuck in a time loop. The same wedding day. Forever. He's been there long enough that he's stopped caring. She just arrived. Hulu buried this one when it came out in 2020. It deserved far better, because underneath the rom-com packaging and the genuinely funny screenplay is something more interesting than the premise suggests. A film about two people who have both, in different ways, given up on the future, who has decided, consciously or not, that forward is too frightening. And what happens when you're forced to confront that by living the same day until you figure out a reason to leave it? J.K. Simmons plays a third person stuck in the loop, and his arc is the film's most quietly devastating thing. Sold for $17.5 million at Sundance 2020, the biggest sale in the festival's history at that point, and then disappeared. Funny, genuinely romantic, and smarter than it looks. Genuinely one of the best films of its year. Number 2, Strange Days. Kathryn Bigelow directed this. James Cameron wrote and produced it. And it is one of the most completely realized, most urgently relevant, most criminally neglected science fiction films of the 20th century.
Have you ever jacked in? Have you ever wire-tripped? No? A virgin brain. Well, we're gonna start you off right.
Ralph Fiennes plays Lenny, a former cop turned black market dealer in squid clips. Recordings of human experience, sight, sound, touch, emotion, play directly into the nervous system of the viewer. Not film, not VR. The actual subjective experience of another person, lived from the inside. Angela Bassett plays his driver and protector. Juliette Lewis plays his ex-girlfriend, a musician entangled with a dangerous manager. And a murder investigation, beginning with a squid clip Lenny receives that he was never supposed to see, pulls all of them into the center of something enormous. What Strange Days does, and what most science fiction films of its era declined to attempt, is use its premise as a direct political instrument. The squid technology makes voyeurism tactile, makes violence experiential, collapses the distance between witness and event. In 1995, Bigelow used this to make a film about police brutality, racial violence, and the specific complicity of people who consume the documentation of those things from a safe distance. James Cameron co-wrote the screenplay and produced. It was one of the most expensive independent films of its year. It bombed completely. One of the most significant commercial failures of 90s Hollywood. One of the great American films of its decade. Not a question, a statement. Number 1, Moon. Duncan Jones made this as his debut feature. Sam Rockwell is in almost every scene, and it is one of the finest, most precisely constructed science fiction films of the 21st century.
Come outside! Who is he? You tell me who that is!
Perhaps you're imagining things.
Rockwell plays Sam Bell, a man 3 years into a solo contract on a lunar base, harvesting helium-3 for Earth's energy supply. 2 weeks from the end of his contract. Ready to go home, and then an accident happens, and Sam discovers something about his situation that the film spends its second half working through, with a patience and a compassion that is genuinely rare in the genre. I will not tell you what he discovers. Go in blind if you haven't seen it. The film is, at its core, about identity, about what makes you the person you are, and what happens when that certainty becomes complicated. And Rockwell, playing a character whose situation requires him to do things with his performance that I can't describe without spoiling, delivers what is arguably the finest work of his career. In a career that includes this list's opening film. In a career that includes a Best Actor Oscar. This might still be the peak. Kevin Spacey voices the base's AI, Gertie, with a warmth and a gentleness that becomes increasingly significant as the film progresses. Jones made this for $5 million, shot almost entirely on sets built at Shepperton Studios. Every penny is on screen. A film that proves definitively that science fiction has never needed spectacle to be extraordinary. That's the end of today's list. 15 sci-fi films, all streaming on Hulu, all waiting to be discovered. Now, I want to hear from you. Which movie from this list is your favorite? And what kind of movie or TV series list would you like to see next? Drop your ideas in the comments. I read every single one, and your suggestion might become my next video. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. I upload a brand new movie recommendation video every 2 days, so there's always something great to add to your watch list. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.